offered with love by my devotee in pure consciousness. So in this verse, what Krishna tells is that if any devotee is offering a leaf, a flower, water with pure devotion, then like then Krishna accepts it gladly and gives the blessing to the devotee. So like we read in the purport, that in this verse, bhakti is written twice, in the second line and in the third line. So that's why like it's so important in this shloka that the key is not about what is offering but how it is being offered. So with pure devotion, with thinking only of Krishna in the mind, with pure bhakti, if we offer something simple as a leaf, a flower, fruit or water, then Krishna is satisfied and accepts gladly these offerings. So yeah. So the core teaching for this particular shloka is that Krishna values devotion, the bhakti behind the offering, not really its material worth. So because the object which we are offering is insignificant to the Lord, how we offer it and with the intention that we offer it is what matters. So bhakti is what really matters. So another way to perceive it is like bhakti is both like love and surrender, because otherwise there is no bhakti. If there is no love or if there is no longing for the Lord, it's not really bhakti. Also, if there is no surrender in front of the Lord, that is also not bhakti, because we can love another person, we can love our parents, we can love our wife, we can love our kids, but since till the time we do not surrender, it is not truly bhakti. So with the thought of bhakti, if we offer anything, be it the smallest material, Krishna accepts it happily. So also in this shloka, since it says the offering can be a leaf, a fruit, or just water, so that's why it is like the offerings are not fancy, it's not expensive, it is accessible by everyone, rich or poor doesn't matter. But the richness, really the differentiation comes from the bhakti, because the richness or the poor in front of the Lord is about like how devoted you are, like how strong is your bhakti, not the material things that we offer. So that's why it says that everyone, regardless of wealth or social status, can please the Lord just by having that devotion and offering simple objects. Um, Also in the shloka that in the divine economy, unlike in material world economy, love and devotion is the only currency that in which we deal, or in which we make business with the Lord. Nothing else, no material. It's only like love and devotion is the only currency. So yeah, like a summary is like God is not calculating like how many things we are offering or what is the value of the things that we are offering. Krishna is always thinking about like with what intent and with what deep devotion that the offering is being made. So that's all that really matters to Lord. Yeah. So the key insight for this particular shloka is that God really lacks nothing material, and he does not need anything from us. Like Krishna is all pervading, since everything comes from him. Like he does not really lack anything as that we can give, or like he does not have any wishes that we might be able to fulfill by offering any material, but his only wish is like offer me something with pure love and devotion. So this is also like from a real practical viewpoint. When somebody like invited me, let's say for their birthday party or for their anniversary, but they're like very wealthy and they have all the opulences, so it is always very tough to imagine like what can I gift them, because they have everything material. What can I purchase from city center, or what can I purchase from online Amazon? that they cannot buy themselves, that they desire. So it's always tough to gift such a person. For them, like what I have found personally is what works really well is like something very personalized, as simple as a handwritten note is something that they will always remember me by, or something which is like my favorite book, or a book that they might like. It's not expensive, it's not something that that they cannot purchase on their own, but it becomes invaluable because of the meaning behind it. If I send like a card which is like handwritten, it holds much more value to a wealthy person than anything I could purchase and give. So in that sense, Krishna is already the richest, like the most opulent. In material things, we cannot offer him something that will please him. So just like a simple offering, so that it really is an offering, and with given with pure bhakti and pure devotion is all that Krishna cares about.
Hari.
Hari Bol. Okay, we'll go to the next slide.
I think that F2 or that bright one that you can again click, maybe it will go.
Which
The
one?
brightness.
This one?
Maybe if you click.
Okay.
It didn't come. Yeah, it went. Krishna?
Can we get it there? Your system, Arisi.
Yeah.
Once we listen to you.
Okay, I think this story as an example has already been discussed in our Bhakti Vriksha. I remember, I can recall that, or I had a discussion with you, Prabhuji, because I remember this story. So when Pandavas were in exile, so this sage Durvasa, who was known for his fierce temper, came along with 10,000 of his disciples, expecting a grand meal for everybody. But Draupadi had already finished the food and already eaten, and the bowl was empty. So it was big problem in Draupadi's mind that a big renowned sage has come to my place and I have nothing to offer. And Draupadi was scared that if I don't offer food to the sage, then a curse will come upon me and my family. So because she was so stressed that she had nothing to offer to sage Durvasa, she remembered her dear friend Krishna, and she just closed her eyes and prayed, "Ki Krishna, please help me." Yeah, so she was very stressed, and with tears in her eyes, she prayed to Krishna that, "Krishna, please help me." And listening to her prayer, Krishna appeared saying, "Okay, I am hungry now. Please bring the Akshay Patra." So, Hari Bol Roji.
Thank you. Thank you. Continue.
So we were just like discussing the slides on 9.26, and yeah, this is the story of like Draupadi, and when Sage Durvasa comes, and so yeah, so listening to her prayers, Krishna comes and Krishna says, "Okay, don't worry. I am hungry. Like, bring the Akshay Patra to me." So like Draupadi found only one single grain of rice in the pot, and like Krishna was like satisfied with it just by having that single grain, and telling Draupadi that this is the most delicious meal that I've had. So again, like when we were discussing the shloka, it was not about a bowl full of rice or other delicacies, but it was just like the single grain of rice, but offered with pure devotion, pure bhakti toward Lord. And Krishna was fully satisfied, and he said that it's the most delicious meal because it was only a single grain of rice, but it was offered with like pure respect, surrender, and love by Draupadi. So,
I don't agree.
Huh?
I don't agree.
Not
The plus point here is whatever Krishna wants, that was delivered. I mean, it was his mere, what do you call that? She wanted to do outcome of that problem, right? So then, yeah, please
Come, come.
Hare, come.
Hurry, ball, come in. Venkatesh Prabhu.
So, what happened, like, see, whenever we are in trouble, we plan out our own solutions and we work out on that. And we expect the other person to whom we are asking also, he will also put in our shoe and then, not on shoe, on our thoughts, and then he will help us accordingly the way we want. But here, Krishna says, bring your ball, give me your whatever is there. So Draupadi gives, I mean, what do you call that? I mean, follow the command as it is. That's where is that thing comes in. Like, okay, Krishna want to help us. Every time Krishna want to help us, but are we willing to go with his plan, or we want to do in our plan only? So that's where is the gap is. We need to surrender to that. Okay, we should do whatever Krishna is saying. Don't expect one rice kya hoga. Right? So that Krishna can do anything.
Correct. Yeah, so I think the meaning here is like whatever Krishna desires, he'll tell it and just fulfill that. That is the solution. Don't think of your own solutions.
Exactly. Krishna is the best planner. We should surrender to his plan.
So yeah, as Ravi said, like there's another lesson here. Like since this shloka was talking about offering something simple, as Krishna said, with pure devotion. That is what the meaning is. But here lies another meaning wherein, like Krishna has already instructed that okay, give me something simple, water, leaf, fruit, and I'll be satisfied. Just offer it with pure devotion. And another learning here is like whatever is asked, like Krishna has all the solutions. Like whenever we are in problem, we'll try to imagine solutions. This might solve it, that might solve it, but the answer is already there. Krishna has already given the answer. Just follow it, and all problems gone. So yeah, again the lesson is from even the smallest offering made with pure devotion can nourish the entire world. And because of this story, the event is celebrated as Akshaya Tritiya, the day of unending abundance.
लेकिन आजकल गोल्ड खरीदते हैं.
Yeah, like in real world, भगवान की वैल्यू अब गोल्ड में हो गई है. In material world.
I think माधुरी को गाना भी आता है. दुर्योधन का भोग न खायो, विदुरानी का. That pastime is there, no? मुझे पता. वही दुर्योधन जब शांति दूत बन के जाता है, so when they go there, तो Duryodhan calls for vow of honoring. Then he says that I don't want all this water, rich food. छप्पन भोग नहीं चाहिए मुझे. बस विदुर के घर जा रहा हूँ. And विदुर के घर में क्या मिलता है? बस only banana, and that too with love she is giving. Banana only.
बनाना खा के वो पना के फेंक के वो फिर पील देते हैं भगवान को.
Again, they are the same. The love is looking for love, but not the posh food.
Posh and delicate.
Delicacy.
So this is another story that I found from Ramayana, that Sabari was a tribal woman who became a disciple of sage Matanga, and because she was a tribal woman with very humble background and without any formal education, not going to school, but she from childhood she practiced like full faith and pure devotion. So that made her like kind of special. So she because of this faith she cleaned the ashram and she decorated the ashram and gathered berries from the forest and in the hopes that Ram will come someday and grace with his presence to the ashram. And people were like, no, you are poor lady from tribe. Ram will never come to somebody like you. You are a very simple person. Why will Ram come to you? So, but it was her faith that kept this service alive. One day when Ram finally came, so Sabri was overwhelmed with joy. So in preparation, she offered Ram berries, but she had tasted every berry first to make sure that they were sweet, and they like she did not want to offer Ram anything that is sour or berries gone bad or anything like that. So she were offering like jhuta berries to Ram, like so yeah, just like every mother tastes the food before giving it to her child. So she wanted to taste and check everything, every fruit before offering to the Lord, just to make sure that only the best offering is made to the Lord. So Ram takes the berries with great joy. Like people would assume that he is God. Why will he accept like jhuta from any devotee? Because jhuta karne se it loses its value, it loses its purity. But Ram assured her that God only sees your intention, your heart, not the content you're offering. So this like reinforces the shloka that it's the intent and it's the devotion and it's the feeling that we make the offering that is much more important than the offering itself. So I think this story is also kind of related.
So, I mean, great question to everybody. Whatever is mentioned here and whatever conclusion I say, do we agree with this?
No.
Why not?
Because I heard like some of the classes like Shabari didn't taste berries. There are plant of berry trees. She bought all the berries like different bag. Something like she tasted this tree. This berries is tasty from these trees or not. So she picked the tasty berries and she offered that one. It is that I heard from somewhere in temple. I guess last time, right? Yeah, that is.
No, my question here is like something because it's contradicting, right? What we practice. So here is that just mother tastes food before giving the her child, and she wants it. That another somewhere you said that I taste their faith or love and intention. That's what I say. So when Matajis are cooking for the Lordship also, they cook of that mood, but they never taste that. Salt, मैं डाला कि नहीं डाला? Many a time it happens, but we never taste it. Salt डाला कि नहीं डाला? We recall, and then we put salt or we just leave it like that. So there also our intention is to serve the Lord with love only. Right? Then, as a practicing devotee, we are not allowed to do that. Savari is at a different level. Okay, so that we can see that we need to bring it to that level. So there was a story also somewhere I have heard. I don't recall exactly who is that person name, but he used to steal from others' place and serve to the devotees. Okay, so but in temple also we say don't steal flower also from somebody's garden. You go take permission and then only take flower, because if you steal it and then offer it, Lord will not accept. So there are so many contradictions are there. When you hear the stories, they are actually of different level of devotees. for example, like people who drive the car or the bikes, sometimes they lift both the hands, right? But can a person who is just driving, he will also say, I will also lift the hand, driving the handles? Not possible, right? So for us, these are like, we can see that we can also reach to this level where Lord will accept our loves, whatever way we want. But as a practicing devotee, we have to follow the rules and regulations given by the acharyas. Second thing about the Savari, what we remember about Savari is Lord Ram's visiting him. But there are two things. Savari never wanted to see Ram. It was the word of his Guru, her Guru, that Lord Ram will visit you. That faith, his strong faith on her Guru, what brought Ram to his her hermitage. And second thing is, she was definitely unwavering faith and pure devotion towards her Guru. Because when nobody was accepting her, Matunga Muni accepted her as his disciple and gave her the duties what to do in the ashram, and she was doing that faithfully. So that's where it's like, also when we are accepting Guru, we need to follow the principles or the rules and regulations whatever Guru is giving. Just thinking, oh, only chanting 16 round chanting, will this take me to to Godhead? The moment we think, we put first gate. But the moment we have the faith, okay, Prabhupada has told us, just if you are not able to do anything also, just 16 round chanting, do faithfully, with the faith and Srila Prabhupada that okay, he will take us back to Godhead. On the back door, he said that he will take you on the back door. With that faith also, if you are doing it, definitely we will go back to God. So that faith, when it comes to Savari Mata, the strong thing is her faith on Guru. That also we should take it, bring it to our life. That's what is my. Thank you for nice story. Next. Already
Yeah, like these are just like one line about the stories, but maybe Prabhuji you can elaborate on each of these stories. One story has to do with Sudama's chipped rice. That since Sudama was a childhood friend of Krishna, when he came to Dwarka with like a small bundle of dry and broken rice, and Krishna ate it with great joy and gave Sudama amazing prosperity, even if the rice was itself dry and broken. So this story related to the shloka says that even a small gift which is maybe looks like unfit to offer to another human being, but it is fit for the Lord if offered with pure devotion and love. Then another story is about Vidur's wife. Like Mataji was telling, that she, when offering the banana, she threw away the banana and offered the peel, but Krishna ate them with delight and was saying that they were sweeter than any great food that you can offer. So this indicates that something offered with pure love can transform even the peel of the banana to the sweetest offering ever. Then there is another story about Gajendra. Yeah. So the elephant king, caught by a crocodile, plucked a flower and offered it to Narayan with prayers. And then Vishnu came and rescued him. Like this story, unfortunately, it's missing any context So yeah, like maybe Prabhuji.
Which one, the Gajendra?
Yeah. Here, I'm not sure what the context was.
Context, it is context as a flower, right? God
Yeah.
is saying Patram Puspam
Laktu.
Phalam.
Hmm.
The Puspam part is you can.
Oh, the lotus. Okay. And yeah, this story I think also had been discussed sometime in our class, that when Krishna was placed on a scale and had to match offerings, even mountains of gold could not be equal to him. But when Rukmini offered only one single tulsi leaf, then the scale was balanced. So this indicates like the entire weight of Krishna was balanced with just one tulsi leaf. So yeah, like maybe Prabhuji.
Here is Patram.
Huh?
Here
Yeah,
is the
here
Patram.
it's tulsi leaf. So any story like you would want to elaborate, because I didn't go in much deep into the stories, just like got the one line summary.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
आज एक्चुअली 25 श्लोकास रिसीट किए, 28 अभी सीख रहे हैं, बाद में 9.16 का श्लोका पढ़ के परपट पढ़े हम सब लोग, और ये डिस्कशन चल रहा
Yeah, because 934 shloka is the essence of Bhagavad Gita, right?
है। ओके,
So that's where is Krishna says Patram, I mean, Manmana Bhava Bhaktam Adhyasina Namaskar. But why I should? So that's where is like we say that. Why you are learning Bhagavad Gita is because of that. Anyway, we'll come to that. So continue.
So 3 shlokas you prepared, huh? All the 3 shlokas?
या
Wow.
So
okay.
should we go all at once, or maybe?
Whatever Prabhu says.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yat karoshi yad asnani
यत्करोषि यदस्नासि
yaj juhoshi dadasi yat
यज्जुहोषि तदासि
yat tapasyasi kaunteya
यत्तपस्यसि कौन्तेय
tat kurusva mad arpanam.
तत्कुरुष्व मदर्पणम्।
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
जय।
Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, do that as an offering to me. So yeah, like this shloka talks about like since the previous shloka talked about what Lord accepts as offering, and with what feelings or with what intentions he accepts as offering. This shloka goes even beyond the offering part. It expands further beyond like the ritualistic offering of कि हम पूजा कैसे करते हैं, हम प्रसाद कैसे चढ़ाते हैं प्रभु को. So this says that whatever you do, every action in life, every karam you do, like make it as an offering to me. So in an offering in material world, we think that an offering is something that we give to somebody or do for somebody. But this shlok, according to my understanding, says that whatever you do, like even if you're breathing, if you're living, if you're conscious of that, do it as an offering to me. So everything that you do, like all action, basically all of your karma, just do that as an offering to me. So this shloka possibly gives us a direction that when anybody is in the path of Krishna consciousness, this becomes the way of life. Like everything which we do becomes an offering to Krishna. Because of that way of life, Krishna always remains in our consciousness, that all our actions are defined that, okay, is this a suitable offering to Krishna or not? Whatever I do, if I think good of some other people, if I think good of society, so I always at the back of my head is like, okay, if I were to offer this thought, even just a thought, is this a valid offering to Krishna? Will he be pleased by it? So this shloka expands into like, okay, whatever we offer and with pure devotion, that's great. Whatever we do in the temple, whatever service we do, that's great. But once we start living our life entirely as an offering to Krishna, then like everything becomes worship, and like it brings us closer. It brings us closer to Krishna with every breath. So yeah, so everything can become worship.
From the previous discussion, how we see this previous look and this look?
There we learned what to offer, and here we are learning how to offer.
Yeah, that's where is the previous loka is dravya, matters. Okay, object. What to offer? Krishna clarify that what he needs. Then here in this loka, it's a kriya, action. What do you need? What we can offer? So everything we can offer, but we have to again see that is that in line with the 26 loka or not. Okay, so what you say is that that's what exactly these lokas why you are discussing or considered as two first part in as see, we started with the goals. So then why you jump to this loka is like, okay, our goal is this one to please the Krishna. That's our ultimate goal. So as Prabhu just now said that when we are doing anything, any action, we always judge it whether it is pleasing to Krishna or not. Can we offer to this Krishna? Because if you are not offering, that means you are not working for Krishna. Right? Thank you. Nice presentation.
Yeah, so everything that we do becomes worship. Like our work, whatever we do, that also becomes a form of worship, because it's an offering that we are making to Krishna. Whatever we eat becomes an offering to Krishna. If we do charity, instead of it being in hopes of getting more pleasant favors from somebody or reputation, not really, but like genuine charity becomes an offering to Krishna. In any sort of austerity, any kriya, any action basically becomes worship to Krishna. So yeah, because this I think also tries to explain that when we make everything an offering to Krishna, then we remove the me out of the picture. Because when we think of gifting or giving or doing something or offering something, it's always me, Mayank, who's offering Krishna. I am offering you something, maybe give something to me in return. But here, when we make our entire life about pleasing Krishna, and we make our every action that should be pleasing to Krishna, then we are actually removing the me part out of the equation. Like it's like removing the ego. That okay. Also, since that me part is removed, the gap between me and Krishna is also gone, because the gap only remains till the time I am different from the Lord, till I am different from Krishna. That is where the gap remains. So I cannot ever fully merge if that distance remains. So that ego has to die first, because then only unification can happen. Like because Krishna is everything, he's all encompassing. So how can I be separate? How can I be like me and Mayank? How can I have a separate identity from Krishna? So I think this also gives us a direction, like a philosophical direction toward like ego death. Like once the ego dies, then you automatically unify with the Creator. So yeah, like your entire lifestyle becomes worship, not just the temple visits or pujas or specific kriyas. Everything in life, every breathing moment becomes.
So when you are saying unifying, so how do you understand this one? Unifying, getting merged into the Krishna, or how do you understand in Vaishnava philosophy? Anybody have any idea?
मीन्स मेरी बात और उनकी बात एक है. I'm still,
Exactly, that's
yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Unifying means does not that. See, we always will be individual soul. Because in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, Krishna very says, eternally you exist, I exist. Means Krishna exists and Arjuna exists. So all the entities are existing. So that means everybody is individual. Nobody goes to merge and become single person. Not. But when we say that merging to the Krishna, in the sense unifying with Krishna means following Krishna's instruction. See, I and me, Sanatana Guru and me are in the same line. When you are saying that means what? Our thought process is same. We are walking in the same direction, and we are. That's what exactly is when you say unifying. We are unifying today here, like together we are discussing about Krishna. That's unifying. It's not becoming one with the God. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing, like you have example here taken from the sloka, eating, charity, and austerity. So what we see here, eating is what? Eating for the self, right? So that means your work around yourself, whatever you are doing, is just not eating. Whatever you do around yourself goes under the eating section. Charity is what? So when you give charity, it's society. So whatever activity you are doing for the society, that comes under this particular thing. And then austerity is like paramarthik or spiritual things, whatever you are doing. So those things comes. I think Krishna covered everything. That whatever you do means, first he say work. Whatever you do, work. What kind of work? He categorized that. These three categories of work you generally do. You do it for me. Do it for me means for my pleasure. And we do. Sometimes we feel like, is it possible? Because today's world, it's kind of like self-centered. Everything is self-centered. If you see today, we like somebody. Why we like somebody? Even if among our children, nowadays I think very less with double or three children. But that's why it's very difficult to understand. But still, among the children, we have a favorite. I think we have discussed it last class also, right?
Malika remembers this so well. I know.
So why? Everything. That's why, like in the friend circle, for our children, at least friend circle, we have a lot of friends. Out of that, very specific person we like very much. We like to mingle with them. We would like to visit their house. We like to stand whenever there is a problem at their house, right? Why we find that person he's so close to me. What is the reason? Sometimes we say we don't know. I like her, I like him. But if you analyze deeply, that he or she is entertaining our, what we want to do. Probably I am not able to do, but she or he is able to do it.
Selfish desires. My best friend fulfills my selfish desires.
Exactly. So we enjoy that one. So that people go to watch cricket. Why they so feverishly they watch that cricket, and sometimes they take off from the office and watch the cricket, right? So what is the gain for them? There is no monetary gain. So why? Because they have so obsessed about that game, they could not play, or they wanted to play but they are not able. So at least they return in India. Myself, I am playing there. So kind of that. So that's where, like, if you see that it's all self-centered. As long as my ego is satisfied, my bodily needs are satisfied, I like to be on that association. The moment that does not happen, we started seeing that it is hampering. Okay, they are good, but not for me, kind of thing. Slowly we'll back up from that place. So that's where, like, when we need to shift from center, self-center to Krishna center. So it's not that easy. That's where comes the role of a guru. So someone we select, okay, like I was reading the Mataji didn't say anything on the group. about Bharat Gopal Guru. So we don't like Bharat Gopal Guru. Because I see only Naveen Guru, you're also agency.
I also know that. I have to.
Yeah, please put
Yeah.
your comments, because see, it actually opening your heart. You start participating in the group. You become an individual soul participating. It's not the family now anymore, right? It's so. Yeah, so that's why, like, when we are reading that, so the common what I understood is he is a person with good heart. That is very common, and so that's why, like, I believe that the entire group was like kind of following him or ready to hear from him his instruction, to take his instruction and make it part of life. So when you shift from self-centered to a person-centered, who is usually supposed to be in our what do you call that, in Vedic culture, it was supposed to be the head of the house is the father. Supposed to be everybody will follow the instruction, mother, children, everybody. And if father is not there, at least the elder brother will act as a father. All these things are gone now. So even if the child is like, he say, I am individual soul, I have my individual wishes, I want to fulfill. Father and mother are helpless. I mean, today we don't experience that in our families, but going forward, it is happening. It will happen in these families also. So if we don't, what do you call that? Bring the kids also to Krishna consciousness, they will go at that side only. Western culture, people's lifestyle, and we see whatever things are happening there is definitely not helping to the society to grow, to balance the society. Nothing is happening. So that's why people are now turning back to Vedic society. Nowadays you see the temples are full. Why so many? Where were those people before? Why they are so much? Every temple, my God, there is no place to breathe also. Sometimes so breathless, so we feel like, Lord, I'm here, I'm praying you from here, I am not going entering. So, yeah, so that's why, like, the worship or our action should be pleasing to the Krishna, and these are the three categories. Krishna says that you can do your actions based on these three categories. So every time, whatever you do, the finally key point from this, key learning from this is, whatever we do, we need to check it. That's why this sloka, when you make part of our life, we say that, okay, morning, if one time you recite with your kids, so they will also remember, they will not forget definitely, and you will also remember that, okay, all our actions should be based on this sloka, and then are we, whatever action we are taking, is it pleasing to the Krishna? Sometimes we will justify also our action, but at least we start checking it ourselves. So then we see what happened, like over the time we will say that, okay, I am justifying all these days, but it's not actually true, so I need to correct myself. That also will happen. But don't think that overnight we will be following this sloka and we will become Krishna conscious person and top devotee. Definitely no, but this is a humble start. Okay, please continue.
Sorry, I have a question. Like you were saying, in modern society, this propaganda about individualism is being far spread. So that leads to like rebelling against authority. That leads to breaking of like family structures. And as you said, the solution to this is like having a guru which guides you on the right path, because that brings back the structure to society at a large scale also, and at a small scale of family also. When young kids in this generation do not have, let's say, a father figure, and they go out seeking a guru, how to determine if the guru is the right guru or just a fraud guru?
Yeah, that's very good question. Because see, probably we will discuss on guru itself one day, one class. So in simple term, we have to see that guru, whoever is guru, he is following. I mean, where you want to go? First of all, that one, right? Why you want to choose a guru? I want to learn a driving, car driving. So I will choose a person who knows the driving. And I want money, so then I will choose a guru who can guide me to earn the money on whatever way it is, like what do you call that? Stock market or investing or something, or some Bitcoin. So many things are there, right? Similarly, what do you want? Why you want to choose a guru? That's what we have to first identify where you want to go. Like see, people sometimes. I mean, we sometimes go and ask Guru Maharaj, this is my family problem, how to solve it. I mean, that's also valid because it says that you should share all your problem with the Guru. But Guru Maharaj instructs that you consult with senior devotees first before coming to me. That also you need to follow the path. But the prime aim here is to reach to the Krishna. And we should ask questions related to Krishna, how to reach Krishna. And what are obstacles I have and how to overcome those obstacles to reach to Krishna. Those kind of questions we should ask. So similarly, we need to check the Guru. Is he following the same path? Whatever Krishna has given in the Bhagavad Gita, and whatever I mean the scripture says, or the Guru Parampara says, is following a Guru Parampara, because scripture says there are 4 Guru Paramparas there. Okay, like one is Sri Sampradaya is from Ramanujacharya. Vishnu Sampradaya, Kumar Sampradaya is this one, Vishnu Swami, but who? Chatur Kumar. That's one. Sri Sampradaya. One is Brahma Gaudiya Madhava, what we follow. And 4th one is Rudra Sampradaya. So scripture says the Guru should be out of these 4 pillars. They should be joining to that. So we have to check that one. Because we cannot judge a guru. Because if you can judge a guru, then you become the guru's guru, right? So at least what you can see that whatever scripture says, is he following that one? Is he linked to any of this parampara? Because scripture says that. Linked to any of this parampara. And then how his activities are. If his activities are not based on scripture, not based on the instructions what we have read here before, so that means somewhere some gap is there. So that's it.
So like you said, when we choose a guru, we see where we want to reach. For example, if we want to become good at driving, we choose a guru who's good at driving and good at teaching driving also. If we want to be rich, we might need a mentor who's good at business, for example. But here, in the path of Krishna consciousness, since Krishna says that he is the supreme of everything, of every subject, of every material thing, immaterial thing, outside world, inside world, since he is all encompassing, so do we just need one guru which is good at Krishna consciousness, or do we need multiple gurus who are experts in whatever things we desire, or just one guru who's expert in Krishna consciousness will solve everything for us?
Yeah, I mean, see, solve everything means what?
Like, for example, like I want to learn driving, so and I want to become rich, and I want to take care of family, and I want to make hospital, like desires basically, in the domain of desires, skills and desires.
So that's why there are 2 separate things. That's what I'm saying. One is material, one is spiritual. One goal is your material goal. So material goals definitely will come to you based on your karma. Okay, you go to a best guru who can make. I mean, he is very good in earning money, and the students under him also have earned good money. So you go to that person. But if it is not on your fate, Because see, whenever a person is taking birth, so all your happiness, material opulences, when you will die, all these things are all fixed. You cannot do much manipulation on it. Otherwise, everybody who comes to Bahrain could be a rich person and go back and settle back, right? So it does not happen like that. What we think, we give a mentally satisfaction that okay, I have done my part. It's not on my part, it's not getting it, that's a different thing if you believe all this on this line. This is material part. So in this material part, so there is a Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Chakra, that cycle we continue on that one. There is no release from that. As long as you are attached to this one. Because the moment you are attached to the material thing, you are not attached from. See, when I'm talking to you, your phone bell ring. Okay, so you will just look, who called it? Why is calling you? This 2 seconds, whatever you thought, whatever I said, it will go to you, right? You say, I just missed you, sorry, repeat me. Or you will just say, okay, I will catch up with whatever you are saying from that, I will relate and I will find out what you told. So similarly, the moment we are attached to material thing, then we lose the attachment from the Krishna. When there is a light, there cannot be darkness. There cannot be dark, then there is no light, definitely. So exactly, when there is material objects are there or attachments are there, we cannot attach to Krishna. So when we are fed up, we feel that okay, enough now, then only you will catch to Krishna. But what we are doing is you are not enough now. We are still attached to material thing, only thing that we are trying to understand the path. So the moment we say enough, at least we know we are on the track, so we will go fast. Now we are not going fast. We are just on the track. Maybe we take 1 step, then we go back 2 steps. Okay, something like that is happening. But at least we are happy that yes, we are on the track. And anytime, the moment you leave this one, we will go fast. But we are so attached. I mean, it's every stage. It's like whenever you are starting, also the same condition. When we are after 25 years, also we are almost same condition. That's why I always say that I'm sitting and speaking here does not mean I am a guru. I'm just one of you guys. So I'm not a guru because I'm still struggling. Whatever you are struggling, I'm still struggling the same thing. I'm not able to leave behind the attachment to whatever attachments I have in the material world. The moment, but thing is like I give example of like anybody know swimming? You know, oh, so many people know. Very good. So if tomorrow something happen in Bahrain, like now the war is on the verge, right? And so all the routes are closed. So can we go by swimming?
उठता नहीं है तेरे उसे हाथना
टाइटैनिक हो जाएगा
Okay, मान लीजिए because no, Titanic is a different case.
जरूर टाइटैनिक हो जाएगा नहीं
But see, swimming on salt water is much easier than fresh water.
I didn't know
harder
this.
though salt water yeah.
Why?
No, much easier. Because it's dense, not salt water.
Okay.
I didn't know this.
So, I mean, just take it as a granted that we know that much swimming that we can swim across the and we will reach at least. I will go out of the Bahrain at least. Okay. So what difficulties we see there when you swim across the? There are a lot of difficulties, right? There are difficulty and then there is dangers also from the sea creatures are there also. But suppose we get a log in between. While swimming and we got tired and we are looking at one log came. So are we in better position?
Little bit.
Right? But same dangers are there, like the sun heat is still there and the sea creatures issue is still there. But somebody comes with a small boat, a rowing boat, then
Much better.
much better, right? But the problems are still there. The sun, then the hunger, and sea creatures, maybe not every creature can cause a problem, but there are still dangers are there. And then we got a steamboat. We are much more like there is food also available, and so we are much relaxed. We nothing have to do, right? But if a ship comes, then no question of any problem, right?
Yeah.
But in all these cases, swimming, log, and the rowing boat, we have control. Swimming, where you want to swim, you can go. Nature says, my ways, I can go. Right? Log also same thing. Boat also we can influence the person, okay? Or we can take over the thing rowing and then you can do it. But the moment comes to the steamboat or the ship, we lose our individuality. We have to surrender to whoever is on the captain. Yeah, whoever is driving the thing, like the steamboat or the captain. We have to, completely surrender and depend on him only. That's exactly in our life we are doing. We want freedom, so that means we are swimming across the
Bhavasagar.
ocean, huh?
Bhavasagar.
Saga. And we feel that, okay, I am in control. Are we in control? We are putting ourselves in danger. So when we started surrendering to like the captain, what happens? All our problems, miseries are gone in a single moment of time. The moment he picked us and we said, okay, I am also ready to go up, that is completed, right? But we feel that, okay, I lost my freedom. But where is happiness actually? Losing that freedom is happiness, or having that freedom is happiness? So when we understand this, because the reason we are here in this world, in Bhavasagar, as Prabhuji said, is because of this particular problem, that we want freedom. We say, Krishna says, you cannot do yourself whatever you want to do. Here, you have to go down. Okay, we say, ready. I want to go away from you, but I want my freedom. So the moment you surrender that freedom again, Krishna will take back. But then I say, I surrender Krishna, I want to come back. But internally, how much I'm surrendered, Krishna always show you. So the moment we start surrendering, like, that's why I'm saying that moment, as a head of the person, or as a person, we also need to surrender to someone, Guru or our elders. Okay. Similarly, the mother of the house, if she does not surrender to the husband, the children also will not surrender to her. Because this is all chain reaction. How much acting we do, Paramatma is knowing that one. It is happening based on that Paramatma's this one. It's not that, okay, I'm showing this, projecting this, so people might be thinking, okay, I am this person. But I am not that. That Paramatma knows, so or he is Paramatma also knows that, so they will also behave that way. कितना acting करता है. So, but we think that, okay, I'm smart, and the way I'm speaking or the way I'm presenting, people are thinking that I am this person. No, this is the chain of Paramatma. So it's like, that's why I will say that I will make my children to follow me, but I will not follow my authority. So it starts from the smallest authority only. It's not that, okay, I will take Guru and I will follow his instruction, and the Guru is not here, so I can do anything. So that does not work. You have to surrender to your immediate authority. Whoever is your immediate authority. Like for us, like temple president is our immediate authority. We need to follow his instruction. And similarly, in office also, we need to follow our authorities. And we, at least in office, we follow. Otherwise, life would be so much troublesome. Right? The same thing happens on this part also. We cannot make this life that, like we have to lead a single life. We cannot put two faces with us. So that's why, like, Guru is the moment you are serious, Lord Krishna put us into that group automatically. For example, that why you are, I mean, you come in association with the devotees who are in association with ISKCON. In Bahrain, there are, I think, so many groups are there. Like, Ayappan, Amma, Maya Mission, what else? Then Sai Baba, both Sai Baba, Shirdi Sai Baba, Sai Baba, both Sai Baba, everybody is Brahma Kumari. So why you people got attracted to ISKCON side only? Okay, so that's what you have to think. That means Krishna or your worshipable Lord, whoever is pointing you towards to go on that life. So that's where is. I mean, you can. I mean, you are generally what happens, like when we come, we have some idea of some other group. Then we come here, and then we compare both. Is it the right path? This is right path, or so simple thing is Bhagavad Gita. Whatever the organization name I took, they all teach Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so then how much transformation has happened you can see on those people who are following those Bhagavad Gita. And the example of Srila Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita is, see, the person who was deep into sense gratification, those people turn to a saintly person. So are we on that stage? No, definitely I'm better from that stage. Then why we cannot become the saintly person, people like them? Because see, we follow American people, right? American is the West. So following the American, those Americans who had such facilities, such many, and they woke up not with a cup of tea but with other things, okay? And humanization for them is like part of life. And what else? Eating non-veg and everything is like, oh, I mean, that's a cold country. You have to take those things, otherwise you will not survive. That's what some people say. I don't know. So they left all those things and they survived. The question is, some people they ask us, "This is cold country. How can we survive without that?" So I said, it was on their blood. So they could survive. It was not on your blood. Why you cannot survive? So, yeah, that's where it's like, we have to choose, like, where do we want to go? Because people sometimes they are does not know where to go, and most of the time in India, what we have seen is going to temple means asking for material pleasure. So many people, they come with that mentality that we make a guru, so popular guru, so we will not have any material problem. With that mindset, if you are coming, the moment there is some material obstruction happen or material disturbance happen, you feel, why I am here? But that's not the aim. The aim here is to go out of this life cycle as birth and death life cycle. We have to go out of this. And I think we have discussed this also before, that this will go away only when you are, because if you are tomorrow you full of what is your idea that having so much money, so much facilities, other people are happy. Gaur Gopal Prabhu once sharing his experience that somebody invited him for a first ride on the
Ferrari?
Lamborghini. So, because Gaur Gopal Prabhu is a saintly person, he want to give the first ride. So the car will be purified, this, that, sanctified. So is it the use of a saintly person to invite? I mean, it's not. But sometimes people, Gaur Gopal Prabhu and Guru Maharaj, all they go just to satisfy our ego or ourselves, right? So then he said, he has so much money, some opulent family members, everybody. But on that ride, he broke out. He started crying. He started playing. I mean, so then what is the we can understand that having money, having so much opulent family member, become a family member in an opulent family does not bring happiness. It's just we think that okay, we are satisfied. We are also trying to get money, so we feel that okay, we will have control. We will able to do this. We will do that. We can command that person, kind of thing we think. But if it is not on your what do you call that? Fate, because the moment you are born, everything is written. So it's not there. How much struggle you do, you will not able to do anything on that one. Unless we realize this, we will not read Bhagavad Gita. As long as you are thinking, I am happy, I am doing well, so then what's the need of Bhagavad Gita? Sometimes Bhagavad Gita is what? Is a detachment or attachment book?
Attachment to Krishna and detachment to material.
No, it is an attachment book. Only attachment book. It does not do any detachment. Matajis, they left their house, right? They come to our house. So, is it they have detachment to their family members?
No.
No, right? When we have attachment to the Krishna, do we have to detach all our family members? No, we have to work for Krishna, for them, because they were all given by Krishna to us. But only thing that our mindset has to change. We have not changed. We think this is my property. Baba, your body is not your property. What to say about my child, my wife, my this and my that? The body itself is a rented property. You are on a rented property. Anytime the renter asks, leave it, you have to leave it. So,
sorry, Prabhuji, just now you said like with all this one, unless until if we free from that one material, like now we are again stuck with the material, right? With family and everything. Unless attachment. There is attachment, right? Unless until if we free, that attachment will not get like
Move forward.
do we have time?
2:10 we actually
2:10,
are
okay. 5 minutes is
out
fine.
of
Because
time.
this one only. So
sorry to ask.
No, that's fine. That's the thing. So these are the things. Unless we clarify the questions, we will not go in the right direction. We will be going in the wrong direction, thinking this is the right direction. When Mahabharata Yuddha started, on the plan, Bhima, Arjuna, everybody was so eager to fight. But what for? What for they wanted to? They were eager to fight. Kingdom for themselves, right? Then Arjuna saw them and then
No need.
he said, no need of kingdom, nothing, I don't need anything, right? I want to go back to jungle and beg. But Krishna make him fight again. Correct? Now what for he is fighting?
Dharma.
He is no more fighting for himself.
Fighting for Krishna.
Fighting for Krishna, for the dharma and all that thing. So similarly, the attachment today we have is like Arjuna's attachment before the war. The attachment you still have after the Bhagavad Gita is like Arjuna after the Bhagavad Gita. Two situations different, right? Here is like self-centered, here is Krishna-centered. So we will not have to leave our family, we will still have to attachment, but the property of Krishna, it's not my property. It will still, because see, Krishna has given the property to you to take care of it. You cannot just say, drop it and go somewhere else thinking that, okay, I want to nirvana. Then again you self-centered. Still whatever you are doing is self-centered. So that's why the Bhagavad Gita only changes the mindset. It does not change your responsibilities. Your responsibility remain the same. Clarify.
Yes.
Very nice, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I do mind. But you can ask the question. But you can discuss when you're having prasad. Prabhu, you'll stay?
Yeah,
Prashad?
no, I will go back. But it's okay. I mean, I have
Yeah.
question over here.
Yeah, I'll make.
So, like you were explaining about fate, and there are material achievements and there are spiritual achievements, and there are material results and there are spiritual results. So, as you said, based on our karma, our destiny or fate related to what we receive in the material domain is predetermined, more or less. We can't change it much. But is it the same for our spiritual progress? Is that
No.
also predetermined?
No.
That is like 0 to unlimited. It can be.
Whatever is predetermined is your material.
Okay.
The effort you need to put in the spiritual part. But thing is, people they say if you don't put effort, then how you will get it? That's for the spiritual part, not for the material part. Material parts are all written.
Okay. So if material parts is not really concerned with how much effort we put, but spiritual part is entirely effort driven,
Exactly.
and it is not predetermined at all.
And the spiritual part can burn your material part also. In Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma says, Karmani nirdhati tu bhakti bhava. So whatever the material prarabdha karma, that can be burned out by your spiritual activities. So sometimes we see that, okay, but the spiritual person is still going through the trouble of material trouble, but on whose eyes? That's the question. We see he's in trouble. But he may not be thinking that's a trouble. He's thinking as my blessings of my Guru Maharaj, blessings of the Lordship. So he's actually detaching me from certain things what I'm attached to. But people who we say, oh, how much trouble he's going through. He's not. Simple example is like people who are in ISKCON. Friday morning is a time to sleep. People sleep leisurely, and these people are struggling. 4 o'clock they got up and go for Mangala. They ask them, are you happy with that? Otherwise, why they are going? But for us, we see all people they are struggling. Oh my God, 4 o'clock, it's time to go. It's time to sleep. We always compare from our point of view. But you have to see from their point of view. Are they feel that is struggle? Are they having trouble with that? If they are happy with that, then people who in ISKCON, they don't eat outside. Oh my God, so nicely decorated, and they don't eat. But later on, they found that okay, eating that. Yesterday or day after yesterday, somebody forwarded me a video. He said, "Are we drinking milk?" He said there is mix of urea, ice cream. We are thinking that these are benefit for our health, and we are eating something wrong.
There was a study on Amul something.
Correct.
In India.
So outside food, definitely now people are turning back to home food only. I saw in video, YouTubes are like flooding with like how to make this at home, how to make this at home. Okay, so we'll go for Narasimha.
We'll go for home food. Piral will go.